გამარჯობა მეგობრებო, პირველად გადავიღე ასეთი ვიდეო. ამაში გაიცნობთ ჩემ ორ მეგობარს, ვისადილეთ ერთად და ვსაუბრობდით საქართველოზე. უყურეთ და გვეტყვიან მაგალითად რა არის მათი საყვარელი ადგილები, რაზე მუშავდნენ და რა მოეწონათ და ბოლოს რა იყო ყველაზე შთამბეჭდავი გამოცდილებიდან საქართველოში. Hey everyone, so this is the first time that I've done this type of video. In it, you'll meet two of my friends. We had breakfast and we were talking about Georgia, so I recorded it. So watch and they'll tell us about, for example, what were their favorite places, what they worked on, what they liked, and last, what was most impactful or what their takeaway was in Georgia. So with that, let's dive in.
But anyway, yeah, if you guys would like to introduce yourselves and just talk about who you are and how we know each other.
Yeah. My name's Colin Plaisance. I'm actually grew up in southeastern Louisiana. I'm very proud of Bayou boy. But I joined the Peace Corps while I was in the middle of grad school and spent 2 years in Port Jomie working at a media center. I have earlier my background was more in social media and public relations. But then after my time in Peace Corps, I came back with my then girlfriend, now wife, and got a job at the Department of Labor working in civil rights for a number of years. And since then I've moved into the private sector. But yeah, now I'm working a long time with my now wife, building our family.
Cool.
Yep, and I'm Matt Best. I'm grew up in upstate New York with roots in Pennsylvania, Dutch country of Pennsylvania. I was site mates with Colin in Port Jomie and almost practically site mates with Ryan down in Aquasike.
Sure, you guys are pretty close.
Yeah, I'm a civil engineer and project manager working in New York City on big transportation projects.
Thanks.
So what have you been talking about on your YouTube?
Yeah, so the latest video was my top 10 favorite places in Georgia.
Okay.
So I'd be curious, what would you guys say is your favorite places? Either like cities or things that you've seen or region even.
Yeah.
So I did kind of some, common ones, so Mestia, Ushkuli, but also kind of uncommon ones just because of personal connection. So like Adigeni, down south. Like most people are like, where the hell is Adigeni?
Yeah.
Like one of the cool things there was this place called Okrostike, so the Gold Castle.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, you go up pretty much on top of the mountain, but it just overlooks the whole Adigeni area, and there's remnants of a castle there. So
Cool.
It's pretty.
Iraq. Oaxaca.
Yep. Get some hot sauce.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I gotta remember the name of it.
So just for context, we've got Matt and Colin. I can edit your names out if you want me to say it.
No, you can. Yeah, it's fine. You can.
But so they were both in Port Jomie, and we went to Georgia together the same year.
Yeah, and Ryan, Colin, and I would get together pretty regularly because Aquasike is only
45 minutes?
Yeah,
Oh,
30,
45
45 minute
minutes.
Marshrutka ride down from Port Jomie. It was weird. I always thought it was super interesting going from Port Jomie to Aquasike because you go. Port Jomie's kind of like I don't know. Maybe it's like maybe more like in the like it's more lush in the mountains of
Greenery and everything.
and then as you go south, it just gets drier.
Yeah.
And it just kind of turns into
barren
more like
almost.
a California like look.
Yeah.
It's a little more scrubby. I worked at the national park in Port Jomie, so I spent a lot of time up in the mountains, which
It's a pretty sweet gig.
it was a sweet gig. It was definitely I loved just being up in the mountains and spending as much time as I could up there. So
Yeah. I mean, I love just the town of Port Jomie in general. I just thought it was excuse me. I don't know, it felt like that that quaint provincial little town everyone knew each other, but it still had enough tourists coming through.
Yeah.
Wasn't much going on, just the fact that it had really good weather relative to everywhere else around it, whatever time of year it was. Like, if it was winter, it was still a nicer winter than just outside of it. If it was summer, it was cooler in the summer than everywhere else in their area. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And honestly, it may be weird. I think Tbilisi is a fun city.
Okay.
I kind of think about it like, it's partly because I spent so much time there, just because Abby and I, that's where we met, or we were like first started dating there, and really developed our relationship in Tbilisi so much. So I didn't travel too much once that happened, but we got to really enjoy the city, and just feeling so comfortable just navigating my way around that town was really cool. Like, I don't think I would ever feel as comfortable as I was walking through back alleys of a town as of a capital of any country as I was in Tbilisi. Just we're in this back street, and there was a cat that was behind us, but who cares?
Going on through those kind of creepy underpasses underneath the main
in a poorly lit area.
Yeah.
So I that aspect of it was like, I really like Tbilisi. It's cool. It's cool, underrated town.
I'm trying to remember the name of the town.
We're close to Borjomi? Bar?
No, it was still
West,
east. It was still in the kind of in the center. It was the town of cable cars.
Chiatura?
Chiatura. And spent a day in Chiatura.
Really? That's an interesting one. I would not have thought about that.
It was really unusual because it's the landscape. I mean, it's kind of a plateau, and then very steep-sided valley with the town mostly down in the valley and the river running through it. And they mined something nearby.
Manganese, right?
Manganese, and the water was black.
Yeah.
So that the river had been stained black.
I don't know.
It hardened steel. It's like an additive to steel. Makes it extra hard. And
I know it had something to do with like iron, like metallurgy.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure what they were actually mining for.
But I mean,
I just defaulted to coal because in my head that's what miners do. Because only coal. That's the only thing that exists when I think about it defaulting wise.
Yeah, but because the sides of this town are so steep, they just strung cables up and ran cable cars back and forth. And they all different sizes. They were all pretty old. So
Actually, like, don't they call
great,
it?
thank you.
You're
Get
welcome.
a warm up on coffee.
Absolutely.
Can I actually get a cup of coffee as well?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Black,
So-
cream, black it is.
Yeah, so I mean, Chiatura was, and then up at one spot there was this old. I guess it was kind of like a conference center, youth athletic space, completely abandoned and fallen apart. But it was really just kind of a neat Soviet feel to it. And I visited with my Latvian friends.
Okay.
So they, with
I remember
Lena
that.
Jacobs?
Jacobs and Elena.
Okay.
And so that made it kind of special too. I mean, they could see some of Latvia in a lot of these spaces, even though it's thousands of miles away and completely different culture.
They called them the Iron Coffins, right? Isn't that the place?
Maybe, yeah. I mean,
The iron what? Coffers?
Iron Coffins.
coffins. The cable cars were.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what they felt like.
Yeah. I remember reading about that.
So there's that, and then, I mean, it seemed like I'm focused on cable cars, like the cable car edition.
That's one I would not have guessed.
Hulo.
Hulo, I mentioned that one.
Yeah, so Hulo was definitely a special place, and almost for the same reason, but the scale between Hulo and Chiatura was vastly different. I mean, 'cause you're hundreds, if not 1,000 feet above the river in Hulo I guess it was on the north side of the valley, and then they had the cable car strung across to this little tiny village on the south side. You remember that?
Yeah. Yeah, I've got photos of us in that
cable car.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
It's beautiful.
So yeah, and the ride. I mean, yeah, because you're definitely 1,000 feet over the valley when you're in the middle of that crossing.
Yeah.
So great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, I just remember thinking it kind of reminded me of Switzerland.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So beautiful. Just kind of those big, like in a big valley.
Yep. But I mean, there's probably, I don't know, was there a road even to that little village on the other side? I mean, there were roads there, so there must have been some way to get up there.
Yeah, I imagine there would be. I don't remember specifically though.
Yeah. But maybe not direct from Bulo. Maybe you have to go down river a couple hours and then back.
Which wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Aside from that, a couple other ones that I mentioned was Hashuri. Just that personal connection for us. Even though for most people, I'd be like, Hashuri. There's so many times where people ask me like, oh, where did you live in Georgia? I'm like, Hashuri. They're just like,
What the hell?
Why would anyone go to Hashuri?
Yeah.
I don't know. There are people there right now, so
Yep.
it's got a purpose for some reason.
Do you know that
But we liked it.
you know the bypass is open? I think I saw
Bypass.
somewhere
Oh.
they built the road made it to Hashuri and it's now bypassed. So I wonder if the hammock industry has completely collapsed in Hashuri because
that's a good
people are not
question.
driving through anymore. The
Subsidize those hammock
Mizuki
jobs.
industry is probably still running strong in Surami because
Surami.
they haven't bypassed Surami yet. But
Forgot about that. Is there any foods that you guys miss?
not Mizuki. It was fine, but yeah.
I don't know. I did really. I don't know if it's like foods exactly, but it's just more just like I did kind of like. There's some, even though it's horribly bad for me. Just the way food was treated. I kind of enjoyed that process. Of just, I liked to have my host father was very, very generous with his wine.
Yeah.
And wine all the time. I did like the Tony's puri type of bread, and just kind of like, I don't know. Just I really there were in hindsight. I mean, it got old. I think in hindsight, I have a more of a nostalgic feeling towards it than I did 2 years into it.
Yeah.
But I really did kind of start developing a flavor and taste for the peasant food or the peasant way of eating, and I don't mean peasant way in terms of like a reductive way, just more of it's simple. It's very basic, eggs, meat, cheese, bread, and like even mitzvati. There's nothing complex about mitzvati, but it's good.
Still so good. Yeah.
I was still fine with it.
And so much of that is just preparing seared meat over hot coals. It's just an amazing way to cook. Yeah. No, I'd say just the flavor, the texture of lobio.
Really?
One of my favorites. Yes, I just loved lobio.
I would not have guessed that.
Yeah, Taco did a good job, and she made a lobio that was just excellent. It's my favorite. So I was always happy on a Saturday when the kitchen table was completely covered in beans, and So sitting there picking stones out of the beans and getting it ready because I knew that lobio was coming.
Have you ever had the lobio King Kali?
I have not. I didn't know there was such a thing.
It was. I've had it. They had it at the Hofbrau, I think.
Okay.
I had it in Batumi once.
Okay.
And it was actually really good.
Sounds it.
When I heard about it, I was like, I don't know how good that would be.
Yeah, I mean a bean dumpling would be
It was
delicious.
pretty good.
Yeah.
I gotta say.
I think the problem, the disconnect mentally is thinking about how a meat kinkali is and how juicy it is in there, and then you realize, oh, you're not gonna have that juice inside the kinkali.
You kind of think it's gonna be dry.
Yeah.
Well,
it's either dry or it's gonna be like weirdly wet and not the creaminess that you want out of beans.
I think he would.
But that's what I think. That's what makes me feel like
I don't
awkward
know.
about the idea of it. But I can see it. But it's a disconnect. That's not accurate of what it would actually taste like.
No.
It's kind of like with the potato kinkali. I've had potato kinkali and mushroom kinkali, or the vegetarian ones I've had.
Yeah.
All solid.
Yeah.
Abby and I have actually started. We've actually made some kinkali pretty recently. Yeah. I bought a steam basket because I wanted to start making bao.
Okay.
And then
Cool.
I realized, well, this is basically just the Steam version
yeah.
of how Kinkali works.
Exactly.
So I started like playing around with it. I even made boudin and stuffed it into a Kinkali, and I made a boudin Kinkali. I'm very proud of myself on this. It was really good.
That boudin that you made for Thanksgiving was so good. That was the first time I had it.
I really like the doma as well.
Oh,
Really like this that.
What's that again?
It was the rice meat filling wrapped in the grape leaves.
Oh, I don't like
Is
that.
it toma?
I'm not a friend of.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fan
I've
of
heard
grape leaves.
both doma or toma.
Doma.
Doma.
Yeah.
Both.
Probably
What I
depends on east or west.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably.
what I do miss was not the Bajrajani, but when it was with the walnut paste fried over it, and I was like, that's not something I've made, but it's so simple. I probably should just try it.
Right.
Yeah. It surprisingly was like I enjoyed that. It was a unique flavor that I'd never had
was a very
for
unique
how
flavor.
simple it is.
Yeah.
Like all those ingredients are currently available to me at my local grocery store,
Right.
That's weird.
and I buy all of them on a regular basis.
Fresh right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've never actually even tried making that,
Huh.
and it's very odd to me to myself, like, why haven't I even tried this?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, going back to what you're saying about missing sort of the simplicity of their, I guess, the way that they do food. I think the other thing that I thought about is just some of the things that I really miss is maybe more thematic, or the ways that they live their lives in terms of, just slower pace of life, so sitting around having a meal, they're not in a rush to go somewhere, like
Yeah.
they sing, or they read poetry, or they dance and enjoy themselves. I'm like, man,
Do you think that's do you think that part of that is like at least stayed with you in terms of how you approach things even now that you're back in the States?
oh, for sure. I
Or-
feel like, no, I was just gonna say, I feel like Americans are on one end of the spectrum, and Georgians are on the other. And I feel like I've kind of came back more towards the middle, I guess, and I'm trying to find where on that spectrum I fall.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, not only meals, sitting around a table together, like that's great, but also things like, one of the things I miss is after work, I would go home and people would just be sitting out in the yard on the bench and just hanging out and talking to each other. It's like we're not in a rush to finish something, but we're just gonna talk to each other and hang out and enjoy the weather because it's sunny. And man, how do I get that? Like, how do I? And I feel like it's tough because, I mean, even though you don't have to assimilate to your environment, I feel like it plays a huge part. So it's tough in this sort of environment where everyone is in a rush, or
Yeah, I think it's more at
doesn't
least
have
at
to
the
do
very
that.
least feeling the consciousness of that, of like just being aware that used to be how you lived, and you're able to have that,
No,
and say and acknowledge the goodness that came out of it.
for sure.
So even though you're feeling the pressure of our society to keep moving, keep pace, always doing the next thing, it just owning it helps. Like, I think it impacts how you even approach everything else, right?
It's first step, recognizing it.
Yeah, and I think like before Peace Corps, I never really thought about my priorities of trying to make sure like how I worked and what my goal was, and I think after that, I think after Peace Corps, it really changed my mindset of, all right, how do I do my job the best way possible with the pure intent of working less eventually, right? Or at least or so I can at least get not just like to rush it out, but like how do I make it to where I'm doing the least amount of actual effort so I have the most energy when I'm home to spend time with my family, spend time with my friends, and not feel like I'm just trying to recharge my batteries on the weekend.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That
Interesting. Because I don't think that's a Georgian. I think the Georgians accept that they're going to be working until they die, but they just do it at a lower level. They do it at a lower level because in so many cases, doing it at a higher level doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, we all spent time in Tbilisi. We never lived in Tbilisi, so we didn't really get what is the daily rhythm of life in Tbilisi like. And my guess is it's probably much more akin to here than it is to
That's a good point.
the town.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
Be interesting to talk to people. I mean, I guess could check in with Sarah with how it was in Batumi, but she wasn't really in Batumi.
Yeah.
She was in kind of suburb more. But I wonder if Batumi would have the same kind of ebb and flow of Tbilisi, or if it's more akin to the village, or I don't know. But
Yeah.
I mean, because that's not to say that the Georgians didn't hustle. They absolutely hustled.
No, it wasn't even. Yeah, it wasn't
It's
that.
just how much they could accomplish by doing that.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I think that's where my mindset is that it's not that was the exact way to do anything. It was more just having a mindset of like, ooh, this was a piece of it that I did enjoy, and sometimes it was kind of felt like a little bit like back home where when I was, or at least when I was a kid, where we did have a very good relationship with our neighbors. We would socialize and hang out.
yeah, small
I'm
town
trying
Louisiana.
I'm trying to reconstruct that, at least in a mentality of my life at home, where I'm not just hanging my hat and trying to call it asleep and trying to veg out and watch a TV show, but actually engage. And because even like in a COVID world, Abby is the only person I really hang out with. Right. But having at least her to hang out with makes it to where we have to engage and make it more than just, all right, well now let's watch this series and binge watch this, which we do that, but
until you get ahead of her and then she gets angry.
But with more intent in terms of like how we engage with each other and trying to stop.
I mean, mine was always just, I try to get to the point where I could shut everything down and then just leave the apartment so that I could have, and have 35, 40 minutes walk, throw some music on, do pseudo commute. I didn't do the same thing in the morning. I would just get going with work.
Yep.
But in the evening, I'd have this break and just mentally reset. And I wonder if I suppose within my workplace, and probably all of yours as well, in Georgia, they did have the break because they were going off to workplace. I just wonder if they have the same kind of rhythm to the day. I don't know. I worked in pretty much a 9-to-5 kind of shop. Yours was more or less 9 to 5 too.
Yeah.
Same. Media center was too. Yeah. So, your counterpart's actually. She commuted. She had a 30-minute drive.
Yeah. But she also, they imagine working with her husband, and so it was like always a commute with them. They were the cutest freaking couple.
Yeah, they were lovely. They were such lovely people.
That was actually one of the
Marina?
Marina and her husband Tristan.
Yeah.
Like,
so lovely.
They were just there for each other. And I always loved how Tristan would always say, "Calbatono Marina." And I love that because sometimes every now and then I'll talk to Abby and I'll say, "Miss Abby." And and it's kind of like that tone of like, I'm trying to, like, yes, we're still cute, but also I'm trying to treat you with respect and everything because you're in charge, and she defers to him.
Yeah.
But she also treats him like he's her girl. Like, it's really cute. Like they had a moment. We went to Nino's Minda for training, and on the way back, or on the way there, which one? There are these statues, and these I don't know what they were, but they're almost like large, just these large statues of like weird either goblins or whatever. It was strange. I can't really describe what it was. But but there was a little spot where you could you hop on top of it and climb it, right? And Tristan just grabbed her and just threw her on top and like sat on her, and she laughed so hard. And it was very much like this. It looked like somebody, like a couple who had just been dating for a couple months, just started developing their relationship.
No, they had.
But
that.
they have grandkids.
No, they absolutely had that feel. So
hashtag relationship goals, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, exactly, and I really appreciate that, just because like it sucks right now because the past probably 6-7 years have been like. People, when I was growing up, I thought they had such a strong marriage, and now they're getting divorces, right? And like basically the only couple I have left is my family or my parents that are really solidly strong.
Great,
thank you.
Yeah, yes, please. Thank you.
Yes, please. So it's nice to see them having their that relationship and all.
Yeah, I felt like in my host family as well. Kenny is a very strong woman, and she runs the preschool. Wait, this was the preschool in town there. Yes, it was she's had ventures every which direction. They go and they go to Sarpi and just buy up a whole bunch of cheap stuff from Turkey and bring it back into Borjomi and then resell it. And they just scraping, and she ran a hotel more or less out of out of the house. So really just really, and when I first started, Soso wasn't there, because Soso was managing a construction site.
That's right. I remember that.
Actually, IDP housing up north of Tbilisi. I can't remember the name of the encampment. One of the G13s was up there.
What was that place called? I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, just huge. But they finished, and he was all set to go to what was the resort town outside Batumi, just north of Batumi? Yeah, beach resort town. Kobuleti. Yeah, he was going to go to Kobuleti because they were rebuilding, just rebuilding the infrastructure there, and he was like, and the project just wasn't getting going. The Georgian economy kind of crashed a little bit while we were there.
Yeah.
I mean, the lari lost 50% of its value. Yeah. So then he ended up home, and for a while,
It's a rough time for him.
it was a rough time. And for a while, he was just waiting, because I mean, it was okay. I mean, by the new year, be going, by February, be going, and he just never went. And you could tell it was very frustrating for him. It was very frustrating for Ketty, having him not having anything to do. And he was a baker originally, and he actually had a baking shop up in the mountains above that ski resort town. I'm losing all the names of the towns where we had the training, and that first training in service for the IADs.
What was it called?
But
It was 6 years ago.
you can take this. Yes, Basiletti. Yep. And no, Basiletti was our training center.
Yeah, and then there was
north of Tbilisi. Not Gudowri. That's the ski resort on the way to.
Is that what you're talking about?
Nope. This was right outside Borjomi. You could take this crazy little narrow grade.
Bakuriani, yeah.
Yes. He actually had a bakery up in Bakuriani. So, but it just, I mean, in fact, I think they own land up there. they had several houses. So they definitely lived in their most stable house, but
I feel like that's pretty common. Even if people don't really have much, like they'll have land or several houses.
Yeah. So, but yeah, by the time I was leaving, I mean, he was starting to bake full time again, just to do something.
Yeah.
So he'd make pastries, made like eclair type things, and sell them out of the basement.
I think that's one of the things that I kind of reflect on when I start worrying about everything that's going on right now, and like the stability of my job, and like now, and just thinking that it's prepared me to be much more humble in terms of like what I need to expect from myself, in terms of like it's okay if things aren't working out right now. There's certain things that are outside of my control, and that's not necessarily a reflection of who I am and what my abilities are. And but you adapt, and you be willing to make the tough sacrifices and decisions that if someone told you in high school that this is what you might be doing, you would be insulted. That today, the idea of like, okay, this might end up being where I have to do something that I might feel beneath me, based on my education or whatever. But that might be a realistic possibility of just, we don't know where things are going to end up, right, at the end of this. And I just think that humility towards it can be very helpful, at least in terms of like me judging myself on that, not being so hard on myself when things aren't working out perfectly. Another,
not top 10 places that I want to go back to, but like meaningful places that just it has an emotional response. Is was the I've lost the name again. The bus station that we came into to come into Tbilisi.
Didube?
Yes, Didube.
Didube?
So Didube. So you pull into Didube, and it's absolute utter chaos. There's just mashitkas absolutely everywhere. Generally, we would come into the station, to the part of the station that was closest to the metro station. Sometimes you'd end up on the other side. Just this rabbit warren of low-hanging stalls with everything you could possibly not want to buy for sale. And then just the transition from that muddy, dirty buses, bizarre environment, kind of going into the tunnel to go go towards the metro station, and then it just starts to become much more designed and maintained.
Intentional, yeah.
And then you actually get up onto the metro station, and then you could be anywhere in the West, waiting for the train to come.
Until everybody gets on and off the metro, and you're like, ah! 800 people just flying out of here. This is not, I mean, when you're like hearing it, one person would step back and allow customers to exit. No! And everyone's going in at the same time, people coming out. It's a nightmare.
It was a bit like taking off the village, putting on the city as you walked through that, and all of a sudden you were in Tbilisi, and you were in some place that just felt a lot more familiar to my previous 40 years of life, and that's just that transition was kind of always very interesting, and then the reverse was kind of even more stark. But actually in some ways more pleasant, because I felt recharged after coming out of Tbilisi, and then just was actually happy and excited to get back home. Excited to get the marshrutka ride over with. Hoping that it was a modern marshrutka that would be the next one leaving and not one of the broken down ones.
Yeah, I think part of that though was it was really hard when you left early. And then Anthony had his service ended at the same time. Because I went from having 2 site mates that I would basically hang out with all the time and kept me recharged. We would discuss what our frustrations were, basically like group therapy session over beers and cha-cha. And
not so much cha-cha.
And for me, into smoking cigarettes with Anthony. And at Old Borjomi, and it was that that would help me recharging and become more productive.
Right.
Once you left, I was all alone. Turns out I still had the therapy sessions, but I was doing it by myself.
Yeah,
and
it's just not.
Now I'm just a guy drinking, talking to himself, smoking cigarettes alone. But I don't think I really accomplished much after that. I spent more time trying to see Abby, and so I had fewer and fewer weekends over time, and it just was. I don't think that was as productive as I could have been at that point.
Was it about productiveness?
No, but it still was like I think part of it was like having that year of being so conditioned to having you guys around, to then that being a switch and like a faucet not flowing at all, much more different than like you having your situation being much more so like on your own anyway and independent developing from the get-go. It was a change for me. It was hard. Really hard.
Yeah, the crutch just got kicked out from under you before you were ready.
Yeah. So
I feel like that's I appreciate your insight, because I think, I don't know, for me, my tendency when I look back on the experience is to just highlight all of the good things, but I think there are definitely a lot of challenges, especially emotional ones that you face. I mean, just in another country, adapting to a totally different culture, like just trying to get your what is it called, like your sea legs sort of thing, and I think that's what's up
in the mountains.
And I think that's definitely one, is just being able to, I don't know, adapt to your situation and figure out how to move forward and not lose your mind, not break down. So I agree on that.
Yeah, it's tough. I just I don't know. I think it's still kind of like those weird things I kind of feel like I'm even still getting back. So now 4 or 5 years we've been back. You got back yesterday, right?
Yeah, seriously. I mean, it's been just over 4 for you, Colin.
Yeah. And I'm coming back here. I'm still not feeling solid and stable, and partly it's because of a lot of life-changing events have occurred in that time frame. But I think it's. I don't have any roots yet, still, and I don't know where those roots are going, and I'm kind of lost. And I think that I'm getting to that point in my life where I want them, but I don't know where they belong. Right.
Well, both of you are uprooted. I mean, you started in Hawaii, you started in Louisiana. I mean, both of you have been away, had gone back, and then left for Georgia. When you came back from Georgia, well, you were back in Hawaii for a little while. What, 6 months?
6 months about.
You never went back.
Just a month visit, and that was it.
So, yeah. So you didn't go back to roots. I mean, I went back to roots.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I always, like, I try, and basic analogy for it is, like, there's two types of metaphors. There's two types of people in this world. There's birds and trees, and the birds, the birds exist to, they carry the seeds away and plant the trees around the world and to help the trees spread. Without the birds, you don't have the trees spreading their existence around. But the trees provide a place for the birds to land. And there's different stages of our life where some people will be lifelong birds, some people will be lifelong trees, but a lot of people will go from the transition of one or the other. And I'm kind of...
That's where the analogy breaks
down. Yeah, it breaks down because birds can't
turn into trees or vice versa.
Well, they die, and then they feed the trees with, like, at that point, and then they become a tree.
Okay.
Then we get into more Lion King Mufasa metaphor. When we die, our bodies become the grass, and the antelope eat the grass.
Leave it to the engineer to kill the poetic analogy.
Right.
It was very poetic. It sucked, though. Here's why you're factually wrong. Thanks, Matt. I just feel so good about myself. You bring me down to earth, man.
Oh, man.
Try.
That's funny.
I mean, you could say there's an oak tree and there's a cottonwood tree. And an oak tree drops its seeds at its base to be carried away by others. The cottonwood tree flies away on its own.
All right, you can make your tree metaphor. I'll stick with mine. I like mine better.
These magical.
I'm not as
birds and
familiar.
trees.
Yeah, because then I'm not a botanist, nor am I good at conveying that. Like, all right, here's how these trees are different. But at the point, I think I'm in that stage where I'm feeling ready to put down my roots, but I still don't know where those are going to be at all. The only thing I know is Abby's there with me, and that's it.
Yep.
And that sounds great, but it's still frightening as hell, right? I have a cute dog, though.
You do have a cute dog.
It is a cute dog.
I've ripped up my roots every 10 years, so with some ripping up in the middle. So I don't know. Don't feel like you have to be permanent. Anyway.
Yeah, I think it's not so much the sense of permanency as much of stability.
Yeah.
Which, but at the same time, like, if I wanted that stability, I could have just stayed in the federal government and been fine with that. But I didn't want that. That was driving me insane.
Yeah, I mean, it could have led somewhere, but
yeah, I mean, and it probably would have. I just didn't see myself being there any further.
You seem much more excited about what you're doing now.
I am.
Well,
it's scary because it's much more competitive. But
yeah, I mean, the issue with your job before is it just wasn't people centered. Well, I mean, obviously, working for the Department of Labor is all about people, but it was too far removed from.
Yeah, but I was able to get as much human interaction as possible for it, but it wasn't in the interactions that I wanted to do what I wanted. Like, compliance is not my thing. And I was thinking, like, they bumped me to GS13. I was like, cool. And then I just look around at the next promotions, and I just said, I don't want any of these jobs. I don't want to do more of this. And I think it's got you can do something. I think anybody can do something that they're not interested in, but and force themselves into it. But you can only go so far in something you don't really care about before it starts. Your work starts reflecting that you don't really care, and you gotta have some level of passion or interest into it.
Otherwise, you're just a zombie.
Yeah.
Drone.
And it sucks because I don't like saying that I don't give a shit about civil rights. It's the process.
No,
it's
but
the process I don't like.
Exactly.
It's just not for me.
Right.
It's like, because I think, well, because someone says like I got into it and I realized that car dealerships are just not for me. I'm not an auto industry person, but I can't just go and like, you know what, civil rights just isn't for me.
Yeah, it just isn't.
Okay, sort of a wrap-up question for that.
Yeah.
For your Peace Corps experience, what would you say is your biggest takeaway? Biggest takeaway or learning experience, or I don't know, what's something that kind of stands out in your mind that that's what I got out of it?
Well, my main goal in the Peace Corps was to explore whether I was interested in doing international development as a career move.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and I really learned I didn't want to do it. That I frankly found the way a lot of international development is done fairly disturbing and very focused on the needs and the desires of the donor country without really involving the host country
Yeah.
and their requirements and their needs and their culture to a certain degree. I just looked at Georgia, and Georgia has one of probably the highest number of foreign supported NGOs per capita in the world. I mean, it seemed like everywhere you have people who are applying for grants from some organization that have nothing to do with what their stated organization is for, just because it's money.
Yeah.
It's money that's available. So it's just instead of building something productive in the economy, they're just chasing one-offs over and over again and not really developing any capacity.
Yeah.
Which just seems counter to what the goals of international development are.
Yeah.
So I just felt that it was disappointing. So, but then at the same, so what I went there for was realized, not in the way I would have anticipated.
Mission accomplished.
A mission accomplished, and then but the biggest takeaway then, which was just the life experience, which is expected, and I was hoping for it, of course, and it was amazing, and never would give it up. But I'm much more focused. I mean, that was one thing with Borjomi as well. Is like I felt there were definitely places in Brooklyn and the Bronx and Queens that needed much more help than Borjomi needed. And I felt a little embarrassed to be in Borjomi on taxpayer dime, rather than helping my community.
Yeah, that's a good point.
A little bit of a downer, but that's what I took away. Yeah.
I think mine, maybe one was not so much more of a cultural thing. I don't think I was quite aware of what my underlying assumptions were about what cultural differences actually means. Like, I think we look at so much of the surface level stuff when we think about, there's a cultural difference, and it's much more like customs or communication of how they do it, but realizing that there's a completely different way of thinking sometimes. Like X plus Y makes a different shape Z for some people. They may not come to the same conclusions, even with the exact same information, because of the cultural differences.
Any examples that come to mind that you think of?
Yeah, I just certain perspectives in terms of like how people would view the West and how they view Americans, and how, from my view, it's small. Like they only know New York and LA, and then what Texas looks like as a shape, but not like as a culture.
Right.
That's kind of like similar, and it's also certain things where with my host father, great guy, very kind, very from his perspective, very like forward thinking and advanced, but he still believed that washing dishes was women's work, and he made that clear, even though he believed in women should be able to work, women should get jobs, we should all have these things and go to school and everything, but they need to do the dishes and do the cooking themselves. And so it was just kind of weird, like he still had these other different conclusions that I just kind of assumed were like, if you're going to say you're X and if you're going to say you're forward thinking and this and this, that you would have the same result.
Right.
The same thing with like Marina, my counterpart, super in control, super like one of the most competent women I've ever met. If she spoke English and she were in America, she would be running a major nonprofit. I have no doubt about that, her ability.
Oh, no way. Yeah.
But then at the same time, people would come over to her house and she would act like a Georgian woman, making dinner, hustling around, blah blah blah, and it was just kind of just jarring that I didn't really think about that. And so I kind of like, it's kind of helped me with my conversations with like friends and family now at home that have their perceptions about cultures and immigrants and this and that. I don't think you quite realize just how different some people will be than you, and in what ways they are incredibly similar. Like the things that we will think about as similar and different are, we only focus on the surface level stuff. There's a lot more core that is both very similar and then some things that are very different that we don't appreciate. I think that was my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I think that was something I realized as well. Not just in Georgia, but just traveling is how similar people can be across different cultures. Yeah, some things are so different, but also I'm like, man, in some ways, people are really just people. You know, like hard to get away from that. I think.
What was yours?
Mine was probably. I was gonna say something different, but sitting around with you guys, I think it's people. You know, I mean, I've always said one of my favorite things about the experience was the people that I met, both Peace Corps staff, Peace Corps Georgians, but also volunteers. You know, just such a interesting variety of people from so many different backgrounds. But I think part of it, what made it so, I don't know, interesting to talk to other people is we shared so many similarities, right? So whether that's for travel or development or just an open-mindedness, you know. So I think that was probably the.
Yeah, I think I really liked about it, especially with the people that the volunteers that I did hang out with, you guys and all, that it was an open-mindedness in the sense of nobody was being dismissive of the other, even though there were times where we would disagree on multiple things. But it was nobody was ever overly just straight up dismissive of it. It would actually be a conversation.
Well, that was our group was good about that.
I heard the following group was not.
You got quite the different cross section.
That was super interesting for me to see the different years. I mean, just the fact that we're still here, you know. 4 years later after we left, or you guys left. And still talking to each other.
Are you here? Well, this concludes our Zoom conference with Ryan from Mestia.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, thanks. That was a great conversation. I think that'll make some good content.
Cool. So you just edit down and